Hello, world, and welcome to the Innovation Coaching Podcast. My name is Klaus Rostel, and today I have with me Shaena Harrison. Shaena,
Hello.
how can I help?
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. So when you and I first started chatting, I think I stumbled into you because of the college, which I am so excited for this year to see it in action. Like everything that is on the website just screams like I need to be there. And then you and I were talking about what I do, which is being a professional wing woman. And I'm in this really interesting place of educating while selling because what I do, nobody else in the world does. So I think I need some help on how to get my word spread farther and wider, but also how to convince people that they need a wing woman. Big ask.
And they do. Okay, so let's, is that where we want to start? Because that's a good place to start.
I think it's a good place. I mean, yes. Yeah, I mean, I have this is going to veer off in so many different angles, right? Like right now I'm sitting here, I've been doing what I do for a year, and I'm at the point right now where I'm trying to find some good customers. But it takes time, right? It takes time and effort and energy, even for a wing woman. A wing woman needs a wing person. So,
Which is true. A wing woman needs her own wing person,
hmm
right? And I guess that's the tricky part of it,
hmm
that I think part of it is that you're selling, and just for everyone out there, when Shaena says professional wing woman, that's exactly what she means. It means that she will go to events and she will help people meet potential customers, stakeholders, allies, etc., and be the one who says, "Hi, have you met this amazing person?" The tricky thing about that is, of course, that while we can all see why we need that, there's a big jump to hiring somebody to do it. And there's an even bigger jump to paying somebody to do it, right? That I think that if you wanted to get more gigs, one way to do it would just be to do it for free. Now, that, of course, creates its own set of problems, but it would definitely be doable. Have you tried that?
Actually, I'm sitting at an event right now in Stockholm where I go to every year because I love it. They bring in incredible speakers from all over the world, and I actually just wing person somebody for free. So she works in branding and she's looking for an opportunity. And the guy speaking was looking for somebody who was in branding. So instead of her going up and pitching herself, which could come across as a sales pitch, I did what I do. I got these two connected, and now they are having a fika, which is a coffee and a cinnamon bun in Sweden, next week. Right. So she's walked out with a meeting, and he's walked out with a potential new person that can help him lead a workshop.
Which is awesome, right? And which is exactly what you do.
Hmm.
And they're both going to go away thinking, oh, she's pretty cool. However, there's a huge difference between doing something for free and saying, I will do something for free to give you a taste, knowing that if I pass your test, then next time you will pay me.
Like the drug dealer. It's the drug dealer sales.
It's the drug dealer thing, right? But there's a huge difference between you're at a party, you happen to be a drug dealer, and you give somebody some free cocaine.
Yeah.
Or if you say you're looking for cocaine, well, I'll give you the first whiff for free. And then if you like what you get, then you come to me and get it the next time.
Yeah.
Very, very different setup, even if what you're delivering is still that cocaine. In your case, it's the cocaine of connection, right? And you do it wonderfully well, but I think there's still a difference between saying that just doing it, which you do a lot of, which of course is valuable to people, but they may not see it as part of a sales process. Where if you say to somebody, let me show you, and if you like it, then you pay the second time.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then you just got a sample for free. So the question is more, have you tried that?
You know what? Yes, I have been starting to do that. The cocaine of connections is going to be the new tagline in my head. And it was interesting. I went to an event in a castle 2 weeks ago, and I met someone who's actually here with me. I brought him to the event as my plus one yesterday to show him, what I do. And he's walked away going, holy shit, this is the most amazing thing. My only challenge now is budget, right? So he's trying to fundraise, which means he doesn't have the funds to pay for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other problem too. Like I know who my ICP is. Like if for the event side, I need to find companies that are B2B, already attending events, are already spending money on advertising services, right? They just need to take a portion of that budget and invest it in me. But I think I keep meeting the wrong people. I think I keep meeting the people who I really get excited about what they're doing, but they're not there yet with the funding. So maybe I'm giving my taste for free to the wrong people.
You're giving your honey to the wrong bees, right? And they may still, because you don't want the bees, you want the bee to bees.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh. Okay, that was terrible, but still a little bit fun. So one of the reasons that I think that is super relevant is that if you're giving not the wrong people, because they're obviously great, but if you're giving a taste to people who, even with a yes, it won't provide funds magically,
Yeah.
then it's a dead end sales wise. It still has value human wise, of course, and it's still fun and interesting, and
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows what comes out of that. But there's a huge difference between somebody saying, I have $1 million, and if I trust you enough, I will spend them on you. And somebody saying, I have $0, and no matter how much I trust you, I cannot spend them on you because I do not have them.
Yeah.
And both of them need to be impressed before they trust you. But
Yeah.
one of them can convert that trust into zero, and the other can convert it into that fictional $1 million.
Yeah.
So I think that you're very much onto something there. And I think you yourself said why it is. You get excited about them. Now, one of your strengths is you get excited about a lot of people. That's a superpower. One of your minuses is you get excited about a lot of people. That is also a hindrance. And I'll give you an example from fundraising, since we talked about that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I used to do, and I saw a lot of people around me in the nonprofit space where I spent many, many years in role-playing events specifically and in cultural events more generally, is that people would come up with an idea for a project. Then they would find a foundation or a grant that would sort of fit that project. They write an application, and then they would try to get money for the project. But they would commit to the idea of doing the project before they got the funding.
Mm.
Where the smart fundraisers, and I met some people who did that, they would do it completely the opposite. They would come up with an idea for something they think would be nice to do. They wouldn't fall in love with it yet. Then they would write an application and send it in. And if they got the money, then they'd do the project and fall in love with it.
Yeah.
Because if you've fallen in love with the client before you know if they're the right type, and in your case, the right type includes somebody who can pay,
Yeah.
not just somebody who's willing to, but also somebody who can, then you're going to be, if you fall in love with them too early, then when they can't pay, you're going to try to bend yourself over backwards to work with them and for them. And they're going to be eternally grateful, of course, but that doesn't magically produce more money.
No.
So then your tactic will be, or your strategy will be, to wait until they get money and get paid at some point in the future, right?
Yeah.
So with right now, the way you're working, you have a brilliant model for people who pay you in 3 years.
Yeah.
You have a less than brilliant model for people who pay you up front.
Yeah.
And if you make that swap and say, I will demonstrate my value to people once I've found out that they potentially can pay once they've seen that value, instead of I will demonstrate my value to people and then find out,
Yeah.
do they even have the money, is one part. And the other part is, if you demonstrate your value to somebody and said, wow, that was really impressive, but no matter how much I want to, I can't pay you. Then you say, great, I was happy to do that demo, but thank you and goodbye.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, yeah, but now I really like you, so now I'd like to do more for you, and you've been very honest about not having any money, but shh, don't talk to me about that because I want to work for you.
I don't know, but this is like, the broke philanthropist, right? Like,
Yes,
and this is what me and my mom were talking about before she passed away. It was like she did so much for so many people around her, and it was phenomenal, but she left this world with like, nothing to show.
exactly, right? That having that nothing to show for it. And here we're not talking about people needing to be rich or millionaires. That's not the thing. But you like doing what you do.
I love it.
You're good at doing what you do. You love doing, right? People love when you do it, but you still need to pay rent. You still need to eat food. And that means that somewhere somebody has to pay, whether it's the people who are getting the value from you or somebody else.
Mm.
The thing about the people getting the value is that they have more reason to pay. I mean, you could just walk out into the street, meet a lovely woman named Ginger with red hair to go along with that name, who said, Shaena, I would like to fund your career. You go out and do great things and I'll pay for it. But the odds of that happening are pretty low.
Oh. Unless, and here we go, like to the incubators or the parks that need that. They have their portfolio companies, the investors, and they need them to go and be successful, right? They actually have the incentive to buy my services in order to help them. I guess the challenge is, and it's not even a challenge. It's just like I need to be in the right places where these people, the pools that they swim in, right?
You said it yourself, right? If you go out into the street and meet random ginger, odds are she won't be interested. If you go
Yeah,
to an incubator who is run by ginger,
yeah,
then there's a much better chance that you'll say, you know what, you're exactly the person I need. So a couple of things here to unpack.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, so if I were to look at a dream scenario, right? Like if you think about the reason why events are produced, right? Events are produced in one hand to entertain, to educate, to inform, but also for the connections, right? People go physically, and you and I have spoken about this at length for like the human relationships, about getting to know people. Once you meet somebody in person, it's so much easier to send an email afterwards and have that whole conversation shift, right? I guess for me, a dream scenario is I want more event organizers to buy me and people like me and insert us so we can actually go and help people in that room connect. But that's my other challenge is like, how do you get the word out to event organizers, which would be like an incubator, to say, you need a professional wing woman on site for the entire event to do what she does.
So there's also a model, and I think part of what we're up against here is figuring out who are you actually serving? Because you could serve event organizers, you could serve people who are willing to pay, but they need help in making those connections. You could serve
Yeah.
people who want to learn how to network. You could serve people who are already good at networking, but would like to get better. You could serve groups. You could serve individuals. You could do train. There's all sorts of things. And as long as you're doing everything, then it's easy for you to do the things, but it's very hard for your network to sell you.
Ooh.
Ooh. And that means that if when I talk about you to people, which I do,
Yeah.
then I only talk about the parts that I think are the best parts. Because if I wanted to talk about all the stuff you do, then they're not going to be able to see that.
You'd need like a long list,
It
right?
would be a long list, and it would also be suddenly they're losing clarity. And the power of a wing woman or a wingman or a wing something, right,
Yeah.
is by presenting somebody else in a favorable but clear light. So if I tell somebody you should meet my friend Shaena, she's a professional wing woman, what she does is she takes that awkward moment of first contact and she handles that for you. So you get a private, meaningful introduction to somebody who might make sense to talk to, and you don't have to worry about that awkward, hi there, you don't know me, but I really like your money, let's talk. She handles all that part, and she's good, and she's reasonably priced. Where I don't say, well, she also works for event organizers, and she also does trainings, and she also does philanthropy, and she also blah, blah, because then it becomes unclear.
Yeah.
I think we need to have you go less into your own trap,
Yeah.
because when you're talking with people, you can't introduce everything they do. You can only give them the stuff that's useful to who they're talking to.
So I was gonna say, I think maybe this is just me like having experience selling really complex like SaaS platforms before, is most of the platforms or companies I've worked at can do so much, but it's about having understanding quickly who the person I'm speaking to and going, oh, you only need this piece of the entire product, right? And so I can understand that if someone like you who's trying to explain what I do, you can't go, and she does this and this and this. But if you're speaking to an event organizer, you go, oh, well, Shane is somebody that you insert in your events, and everybody in that room is going to be able to talk to each other because you won't even realize the magic she's creating, right? So maybe, I guess maybe, maybe this innovation podcast is about figuring out like how do I find more people to help me get out there faster, streamline what I do because I can do so much, but then also like, I don't know. Like I want more assignments, as we all do.
As we all do. And I think part of it is that one way of doing it is that we look at right now, you're getting paid per event, right?
I Yeah, I know we talked. Okay, so I have multiple different business models,
Mm-hmm.
and this is also where it gets complicated.
Please repeat. Please repeat and say the words again, Shannon. I have multiple different business models.
I have multiple different business models. So I have the retainer option where a client can hire me for X number of hours per month, and then I can help them with whatever they wish into the tools in my toolbox, whether that's connecting people or doing communications or helping the sales team be more human on LinkedIn. That's one world. I have the I have the per project, which is hire me for an event and you have me for a start and an end date. I have the introduction model where if you're a company that's looking for leads to specific people, if I have the people and I can do the introduction, I get paid the lead fee and then a commission of whatever it is that you sell. And then I have the commission only model. But this is interesting. Okay, I'm gonna laugh at myself, but then I'm also gonna turn this back on you. I have the commission only model, which is usually like I'm a walking speakers bureau, or I can introduce you to high ticket items. And then it makes sense to take commission because if they convert, if I do 5% on $1 million deal, yay, I'm laughing to the bank, right? And what I'm gonna laugh at myself is that when I go to like your website and you have your four different price models, you have the I work with people for free, I work with people for a small fee, a medium fee, and a large fee. It's very similar, right?
Except it's not.
It's not.
And the reason it's not is, and just for context, for those of you out there who haven't seen my website, you're welcome to look at it if you want. It says here are different price ranges I operate in because I work for many different clients. They have different budgets and I try to fit that in.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing they're getting.
It's the you, the innovation consultant, or you, the keynote speaker.
Yes. So it's there are two things they can get. They can get me as an innovation consultant. They can get me as a speaker. They can also get me as a coach, especially since I've started this podcast. But that's still, it's still becoming a bit much where I might even remove the consulting part from the web page so they can get me as a speaker or as a coach, even though I can do the consulting, even though I can do marketing training, even though I can do this and this and this and that.
Yeah, yeah.
However, the simpler it is for people to understand, the simpler it is for their network, for their wing people to recommend them.
Yeah.
Because let's say that I meet somebody somewhere. It happens. I meet people at conferences, events, parties, and then I mention you, and they say, "Oh, that your wing woman friend sounds interesting. How does she do it?" Then if I say, well, what she does is she takes on individual clients, she goes with them to events, they pay a flat fee for an event, doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, or 3 days, they pay 8,000 euros, and then she makes connections. That's what she does. So if you're somebody who's selling beans to millions of people, she's a very bad idea. If you're somebody who's selling $100,000 ticket items to very few people, she's brilliant. If you're somebody who doesn't go to events to sell, she's not a good fit. If you're somebody who does, she's brilliant. And then they say, that's me. Can I have her contacts? And would you introduce me? Where if I say, so she helps event organizers, she has individual clients, she can teach her marketing team to be more human. She's actually a good chef and she's good with dogs and she can do your website over and she also does tango dancing.
I can't cook, FYI, so.
So that's the one thing on the list that you can't, right? And the thing is that the moment you start saying, well, I can do this, and I could also help your marketing
Yeah.
team be more human, and I can train your sales force, and I can do some social media, and maybe a little, it dilutes because even if you can do all these things, even if you are a superhuman, then it's not easy to understand. Where if you do one thing, this is Carlos. Carlos does a 2-hour laughter workshop virtually. It costs 49 euros. He does it every Tuesday. Does Carlos also teach public speaking? No, I repeat, Carlos does a 2-hour workshop. It's every Tuesday. It's 49 euros.
Is Carlos real?
But you want him to be real, right?
I do now. Yeah, I want to join that workshop.
Because now you're like, I could find time on a Tuesday for 49 euros and 2 hours of laughing workshop with Carlos sounds pretty good. And that's without knowing anything else. Where if I said, I've got my friend Carlos, he does laughing workshops, then immediately your mind goes spinning because you've never really been to one. So you're thinking, how long is that? Is it physical? It's probably physical. Carlos sounds Spanish. Oh, it's probably not for me.
Yeah.
With I say Carlos does virtual. Oh, then it could be for me. I wonder how long those are. I wonder how, it's probably expensive. Oh, his name is Carlos. He probably does it in Spanish. Oh, it's not for me. Right? All these things where we put in our own facts because we don't have any. If I say, I've got a friend named Carlos, he works, nobody's going to go, wow, I totally want to go to a laughing workshop on Tuesday with Carlos because how could they make that jump?
But what if, and I love this because you're helping me like drill this down. And I like to me, like my happy place is and the core of what I do is the physically going to events and doing what I do. Like if I can do that every day, as I said, like my people meter, the more people I meet, my energy goes through the roof.
Mhm.
So it's again, I figured out how to tap into my superpower. And I also really enjoy the keynote stuff. Now I've had a taste of it. I'm like, oh my God, you know, for me, these two go hand in hand,
It's nice, right?
right?
Sure. But they don't go hand in hand for the buyer. And one of the reasons I love selling keynotes, and I love doing keynotes, right? Give me a stage, I'll rock it to a reasonable extent, and I will enjoy it. But the reason I love selling keynotes is that what happens is somebody will write me or approach me or call me or send me an owl, and it'll be, we have a keynote space and we would like you to fill it. What do you cost? And I say, well, look at my website. I cost what you have. They say, wow, that's really nice to work with. And you do this and you're available. Great, let's do it. Very easy.
Yeah.
Where because they know what a keynote looks like, they've already decided whether it's going to be 20 minutes or 45 or in the red auditorium or in a small group. They've already made all these decisions. They just need to know, do I fit into that space?
Yeah.
Where if somebody came to you and said, Shaena, I've decided I need a wing woman for an event. I need her for 6 hours on Thursday, 4 on Friday. I want to target people from these 5 companies, and I want to sell them my new software that does speech training for their consultants. You'd be like, yeah, of course I can do that. Falls within what I can do easily.
Yeah.
But if they instead say, Shaena, what can you do? Then suddenly they're opening the great book of Marathon because it's a long book with all sorts of stuff. And you don't want to be in the position where you say, I could do this, 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 and this. Is it? Ah, okay, sorry, no. And then you say, what do you need? Well, this. Oh, but I could do that as well. Because of course the temptation is there.
Maybe it's from a place of fear, maybe it's from a place of,
It's from a place of fear.
right?
It's from a place of fear. It's the we've talked about dating as an analogy for sales. It's going into the bar. And if you go into that bar and you have a sign and it says, I'm looking for a divorced single man in his 40s, and he should have 2 kids because I like some and I don't have my own, preferably 7 to 9, maybe a boy and a girl. Then when somebody comes up and says, I saw your sign, my name's Patrick, you know that's a good lead.
Hmm.
But the reality is you would also be cool with somebody who had 1 kid or somebody who maybe never been married, who was just single and didn't have a kid, but might be willing to have one, or you would be open to all sorts of options. But if you go in with a sign that says, hey, I'm Shaena, I'm looking for a lot of stuff, but maybe it's you, then suddenly you're potentially interesting to everybody. But it also means that most people think, okay, she's looking for anyone. Yeah, I'm not anyone,
Yeah.
right? Is how do you send what signals are you sending for what you're looking for and who you help compared to what you'd be okay with? I sometimes talk with people about price and about what price they're willing to do. They say, what's your price range? And they say, well, my range is like $2,000 to $4,000 for a keynote speak, for example. I said, okay, great. So you wouldn't do it at 1,800. Yeah, yeah, I would. Okay, then your range is 1,800 to 4,000. And say, okay, so you wouldn't do it for 1,500. Well, I guess I would. Okay, so your range is 1,500. Every time you have a border, every time you have a kind of an edge,
Mm.
that edge will be challenged. Whether you're doing events or you're selling things or you're dating or it's your kids, or you will have the edges will be probed, they will be challenged. And the more you hold on to your edges, the sharper you are defined. The
Yeah.
softer your edges are, the easier you will be to deal with, but the harder it will be to know who you are.
So I need to sharpen my edges.
You need to either sharpen your edges or accept that it's a hugely chaotic process.
Yeah.
If you tell a kid, my 6-year-old daughter, who was just in here a moment ago, if I told her bedtime is at 9:30 every evening, then she would know. And then she'd say, but couldn't it be 9:35? Couldn't it be 9:40? What about 10? I'd like to go to sleep early. What about 7? Then we'd say, no, Saga, bedtime is 9:30. And she would know that bedtime is 9. And if somebody asked her, Saga, when is your bedtime? She'd say, my bedtime is 9:30. If I said, your bedtime is between 9 and 10, then she wouldn't ask about 9:35 because I'd think I'm tired of the 9:40 question. Let's just make it 9:30 to 10 because then we're out of that. No, we're not. Then she's going to ask, what about 10:05? What about 10:10? If I say, okay, it's your bedtime is 9 to 11, then it's 11:10, or it's like, I'd like to go to bed early. Could be 5 o'clock. Whatever the edge is, people will challenge that edge.
Mm.
And you can make your edge very, very sharp and clear. It is 9:30 exactly, period. No question, no nothing, no negotiation. Or it is 9:30, but we both know that that means 9:30 to 9:35. Or it's like, there's no bedtime. Every day it's a discussion. Every day it's like, do you want to go to bed? No. Okay, it's now 2:30. It's beyond midnight and I'm falling asleep. Saga, you need to go to sleep. No. Okay, how about 5 minutes more? It's like you said that when it was 10, right? And that can be fine in some situations, but it also makes it very hard for somebody from the outside in the wing perspective to say, when is that person's bedtime? Or what is this person selling?
Yeah.
Or what are they doing?
Yeah.
It's defining these edges that make us easy to identify. And if you have somebody where the trust level is high enough, then it's a different thing, right? The more the trust level is there, the more you can get away with soft edges. What does Disney do? Everything. And the reason they can get away with that is because they're Disney. Their brand value is insane. Their reach is insane. They are so well known that if somebody from Disney does something and says, Disney now does this, Disney has now opened Disney restaurants, we'd be like, cool, let's go to them.
Yeah, but Disney also has its parameters. It can't go completely far out of its wheelhouse.
Oh, so even Disney,
Yeah.
that was a trick, by the way. So
Yeah.
even Disney, thank you for walking into that trap, though. Even Disney cannot go too far beyond its parameters. Now, even in its movies, people are watching Disney Plus, the streaming channel, and saying, is this thing they're streaming, is that really Disney?
Mm.
And if Disney is having troubles with its edges, and they are so well known and so trusted and have an insane history, an insane kind of broad scope, then us mere mortals, how can we expect to be less hardly defined?
I hear you. I'm listening and absorbing.
Then I'll hammer it home with Oprah Winfrey. And the reason I'll do that is I have a friend who met some years back, one of the former producers on Oprah's talk show, perhaps the most famous talk show in the world, the Oprah thing. And he asked, how do you get on Oprah? What kind of qualities? And the producer says, you have to be a caricature of a human being. That's the easiest way to get on Oprah.
Mm.
The guy was like, what does that mean? Well, it means if you are 120% you, so that anyone who meets you immediately understands who you are, what you're about, and can relate that to other people, that's good, because then you'll make for good TV. Because to be fair, on talk shows, you go on there, whether it's Oprah or something else, you go there, and in a very short amount of time, you need to show everyone who you are, why they should care, and make them interested in what you do or what you sell or your philosophy or insights, whatever it is. The easiest way to do that is to be very, 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 very clear and simple. If Oprah asks you, so what are you passionate about? And you say, well, I like dogs and I like gardening and kids are nice, but not on Sundays. And here's the thing, I like this movie, but it's no, not French movies, except if they're the artsy kind from the 60s, not the black and white stuff. You're lost, right? Where if you say stamps with train motifs, I have 18, not binders, but warehouses of binders with stamps with train motifs. I bought a train for all my money and I papered it over with wallpaper made out of stamps with train motifs inside a train. It's like, okay, let's talk about that. And everybody who sees that Oprah episode will know there was this guy He was apparently pretty rich, and I didn't understand why, but he was into stamps.
Yeah.
But not just stamps, they had to be stamps with train motifs. And that's a caricature.
I in all of this, which is fabulous, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you a question. And this is a question that I love to ask everybody anytime I'm in a podcast or whatnot, is like, how can I help you? For everyone listening, how can anyone help you? Because I think that's what we need more of in the world too, which is also part of the wing person thing. It's like doing these cross. You're talking about me when I'm not in the room. I'm talking about you when you're not in the room. I can't wait till we get to meet in person when we'll both talk about each other there in person. I'm so looking forward to meeting you in person. But what can people do to help you in this going forward?
So that's an excellent question. Excellent wing woman, and not even paid for.
No.
So
Yeah.
that no. So one of the things you can do to help me, and let's use me as a case study for this. The podcast exists for many reasons, but one of them, of course, is that for me, it's a way of showing off how I am as a coach.
Yeah.
And some people will like that. Some people will not like that. And that's fine, because the ones who will like it are more likely to write to me and say, hey, Klaus, I've now listened to 71 episodes of your coaching podcast. And I realized that, as my business partner said, maybe you should see an innovation coach. Maybe we should have a talk. And I like your style. And I get a feeling that you could help me. So can we set that up? What options do I have? So that's one way, because it gives me a chance to show off that. So being on the podcast is helping.
Good.
Number two is telling people you're on the podcast is helping, because it gives some people a chance to say, oh, you were on a podcast? What, that guy does like coaching on a podcast? Oh, okay, well, interesting. Let me give it a listen. Oh, that's not bad. Or also useful. Yeah, horrible. You were great, Shaena, but that guy, bleh, I don't know why you recommended that, but at least it makes you look good. That's also okay, because then it's one person who will not be interested in what I do, and he would probably have found out anyway at some point along the journey, so he might as well find out soon. So that's also helping, showing it off to other people. Saying that, hey, Klaus can help you in general, that's a help, right? You're at an event somewhere, you've done it already, right? You write to me and say, hey, this person would like to go to the College of Extraordinary Experiences. That's helping, because not only do I get interesting people at our event, they also help pay the rent for that castle that we rent in Poland, which doesn't come free. So it does help sell the event. And I get to probably meet interesting people, which is one of the reasons I do the college, is because I meet people as well. When not busy carrying stuff, I actually get to talk to interesting people around the world. So when you ask how you can help, and we are answering our listeners out there, talk about other people is a great way of helping. And most of us want to do that. And this is why I say it is so important that it is clear to your network what you do. And I can see that with my own network. Whenever somebody asks for a graphic designer or somebody who can produce something visually on a computer, I always ping Lisa. Lisa worked with me some years back. She was one of the really cool creatives in my former company. I've used her as a freelancer. She's nice. She's nice and pleasant and good to work with. She's reasonably priced, and she's good, which means that Lisa gets all sorts of recommendations from me. And whenever somebody asks for that, I think of Lisa. Even though Lisa's day job today, she has a job for a company and she does stuff. I don't even know what she does there. But I do know that she has this skill set. She still does some freelancing. So she gets a lot of mentions. I have other people in my network who are brilliant, but describing what they do is terribly hard. Right? I have Dan, who works as an interim CFO and interim CEO. And it means if somebody says, oh, our company could really use somebody to come in and whip it into shape and then leave, I know just the guy. That's what he does professionally. Here's what he's done before. He's really, really good. He's nice. He's great. He's personable. He's reasonably priced, and he's really good at what he does. So him I recommend as well. Where somebody who I have an idea of is great, but it's hard to explain, then I could still think they're great, but they don't get mentions. They don't get brought up. They don't get used in conversation. They don't get sold or their ideas don't get sold or whatever, because some things are easy and some are complex. And the more you can make something easy to understand, the higher the chance of you talking about it to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know this. You talked about keynotes. I'm looking forward to watching the keynote you gave. What was that, at the Women in Tech thing in Sweden?
Women in tech, yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to watching that. When you see keynotes, there are some where people come out and say, wow, this blew my mind. And somebody says, okay, what was so good about it? And then you can relay more or less one to one the central points.
Yeah.
There are also times where you come out and say, wow, it's brilliant. And then they say, okay, tell me about this. You say, yeah, it was like, and then and then it was like this, and it made so much sense. And you think, okay, good for you, but I am none the wiser. In fact, I'm thinking, was it really that great if you can't explain it?
Yeah.
Like it may have been a good feeling, but it doesn't necessarily translate well into a story that can kind of have legs, or an idea that can travel.
Yeah.
Which is why the simpler an idea is, the easier it is for it to travel. And I'm not saying everything can be reduced to simplicity, but I'm saying that if you're telling me about one thing, and I get that, then when you talk about, oh, but there's also 8 others,
Yeah.
it may be true, but it doesn't make it easier to understand. And it definitely doesn't make it easier to sell, and it doesn't make it easier to recommend.
Yeah. I hear you. I totally hear you. So I have some I have some work to do.
Some thinking to do, some
Some
thinking to do
thinking
at
to
least.
do. Yeah.
And I think you hit it on the nail before, right? When you said you would love to do physical events where you're there
Yeah.
and help people. You would love to do keynotes, which is great. And there was a third thing that, and I've already forgotten the third. I'm not even kidding.
Yep.
What was the third?
No, I forgot to.
Mm-hmm. Let's just
Yeah.
call that a very effective demonstration of why this is true. And the
Uh,
more you're doing something that people don't understand what you're doing,
yeah.
the harder it is. Because a
Yeah.
keynote, you're in spaces where the people who buy keynotes tend to know what keynotes are.
Yeah.
The people who buy oranges tend to know what oranges are. But if you want to sell oranges to people who've never seen an orange, then first you have to say, what is that? It's a fruit, it's not a ball. You have to give them, say, okay, you can taste it and you can try it, and here you can see it's not dangerous, and all these sorts of things make it, if you want to sell oranges to people who've never seen an orange.
Yeah.
And you need to compare to other fruits and all that thing. So when you're selling to people where they know what they're buying, and you're just one thing they could buy, like a keynote about connection in this case, then it's pretty easy to sell. The problem is it's easy for other people to sell their thing as well. Lots of competition.
Yeah.
When you're selling professional wing womaning, it's a harder sell, but there's also a lot of education in the sale.
Yeah.
And then you come to the whole trust, and do they have the money to risk? And the last thought I'm going to leave you with before we round off here is, what if you said, instead of going to an event and being one person's wing woman, which will cost some money, then you say, you find 5 people for an event at the same event, 5 different people,
Yes.
not 5 of the same, but 5 different people.
Yes.
And then you say, you are my wing group for this, you're my wing for
Yes.
this event. And then I am your wing woman, because not all conversations will need Carlos.
Yes.
But maybe most conversations will need either Carlos or Sylvia or Sanjit.
It's actually funny you mentioned that though, because I did have that idea of like doing a delegation of like, not a like if I'm going to use carpenters as an example. Like you can't have 5 carpenters because then they're all going to cannibalize each other unless they all do very specific things.
Mm-hmm.
I see it working, and I also see the pricing benefits because if you buy me as a whole, you can all split the cost, right?
Bingo, right? Bingo.
Exactly. And if you bring the right people together, then they can also wing each other and build those relationships. Because again, if you go with a group somewhere and like that I don't know if you've ever gone where you travel with a group of people, like it bonds people so much more, right?
Sure.
And it allows everyone to break up. So yes, you're absolutely right on that. I've done it where I've had 2 different people at the same time, and it didn't work as well. And just because I think it needs to be a bigger group for it to have that. What's the word I'm looking for? But basically, like it needs to have more volume of the people there.
Sure.
Because if it's 2, then it's like they each want. It's almost like dating 2 people at the same time. It's impossible.
Yeah, we're dating five is better.
But dating five is
Yeah.
better. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Because none of the five, they all know there's not just one other person.
Yes.
Nobody's the last, right? They all
Yeah.
know the others need to have some space as well. Where
Yeah.
with two, it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah.
I get that. So let's say you put together the five. Instead of saying find four friends, you say, I will sell you to be part of my gang for this event.
Yeah.
So let's say there is an event, and what you do is, and here's where we say how you sell to the event organizer. Say,
Yeah.
I'm offering a service to your attendees that will not cost you money. What I need from you is your reach, and it'll make your event better because
Yeah.
these participants will be happier and they'll pay my fee.
Yeah.
So you ask them for the permission to offer your services.
Yeah.
So they say, we've engaged with Shaena. She's a professional wing woman. If you're interested in working with her,
Yeah.
here's contact. And what you do is you say, at the Boston doctorates convention, etc., I'm putting together my wing for this. It's 5 people, and I'm going to put together a cohort that is different people, so you're not cannibalizing each other's sales, different specialties, different
Yep.
whatever it is, but at the same event. And that means that they together will pay for your price, so it's reasonably cheap.
Yeah.
And suddenly you could do that at any event, right?
You're totally right. And the other idea I had too, especially coming as since I'm a recovering event producer, knowing how hard it is for events to find capital or funding or whatever, like I'd be more than willing to pay the event or organizer back. Like if I put a delegation of five together,
Ah, yes. Now we're talking, right?
yeah, right, you get a percentage of whatever I sell back to the event.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now we have a model, right?
now we have a model.
And we've reduced the pricing, making it more affordable for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And we've given an incentive to event organizers to bring you in, because now you're not a cost, but you're making them money and making their event better.
win win win. Ooh, innovation podcast, definitely. I'm so glad I'm a guinea pig here.
Ah! Now, with that, I want to thank you for being a guinea pig, Shaena.
Thank
It
you.
takes courage to share challenges, and especially to do it on the air openly for so many people and not just me, which can be hard enough. So thank you for that. The second part is I want you to take a moment and think of 3 takeaways, 3 actions, insights, provocations, things that you will take with you from this podcast. And we've learned that it's not the 3 suggestions, because we both forgot one of them, so you can't use those, but 3 things you take with you from this.
Well, so number one, I'm sorry, is what nobody's going to see or hear because you're going to edit it out is Saga, who's been coming in and drawing these beautiful pigs and chickens and cows, which is the way you do fatherhood is just, it's a blessing to watch. She is such a lucky child. So, like, that has nothing to do with this, but it has everything to do with this.
Thank you. I'm totally not going to edit that out, by the way, but thank you for that.
No, yeah, you're going to edit out all the time she's come in and shown us her updates or for pigs and chickens.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this won't make sense to anybody, but just FYI, she's been showing me her pigs and chickens.
Yes, context on that. And you get to do the second part. Context is Saga, my daughter, has been coming in during this interview, and Shaena has been very nice to give her tasks to do on drawing, and Saga loves drawing. She's shown it off. It's been a whole thing. It's been wonderful, but the sound of that has been edited out because it's a mix of Danish and blah, 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 blah. So you haven't heard it, but it has happened. That's what Shaena is referring to.
Do me a favor, and here's, I think, if it's with your permission, when you post this on social media, I think we need to post a photo of Saga and her pigs and chickens.
I will consider doing that.
Yeah, yeah, good. Number two, my key takeaway is you have such an ability to create such a safe space. And for someone like me to go into, and again, people don't know, we've never met physically. We've chatted times and like we gel, we like each other. Like this, there's opportunities galore here, but I am so excited to know that you're a safe space to have these conversations with.
Thank you.
So that's another a takeaway. And again, it shows a good sign about you being a wonderful coach with wonderful ideas that helps people think about what they need to do and get out of their head. Like I have a lot to process from this because I hear what you're saying and I see the opportunities and I see the risks and the benefits and the rewards. So that's two. My third one is sharpening edges. So I have a lot of edges to sharpen, which makes sense. You're not the first person to say it to me. And so I'm going to take that away and think about how can I do that. And if it is a fourth, it's knowing that I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing and that I'm on the right path.
I like that. And I also love that of the three takeaways, you added a fourth.
Yeah.
I think here we, in almost ironic fashion, and I really appreciate the first one. Thank you for that. That is heartwarming for me. But it's also fun and ironic that you, in a way of you need to sharpen edges and have more focus and clarity, you put in four when there were three. I love that. That just proves the point excellently. Thank you for that, Jay. And thank you for being an excellent guest. To our listeners out there,
Thank you.
thank you for listening. This has been the Innovation Coaching Podcast. You've heard Shaena Harrison and me, Klaus Hostel. Thank you all for listening.